Welcome back. You're still watching Idea Morning Digest on Idea Television. I'm Adewale Olashukwu. Now we're joined by senior analyst at Idea Television, Chris Ejiofor, who will be doing justice to the topic we are discussing this morning. Thank you and good morning, sir. Welcome to
Good morning,
Idea
sir.
Morning Digest.
Welcome.
It's good to see you again this morning. You're looking well.
Yeah, man, you too.
I'm well fed. I'm well fed.
Indeed. The report of a survey by Afro Barometer about the education system in the African continent has shown that education is one of the core issues that Africans are facing when it comes to the priority for most Africans when it comes to assets and our demands, which comes from jobs, health, and then education comes third on that place. And the report has also showed that a lot of African countries are falling behind in the global standards when it comes to the education. Hundreds of millions of Nigerians in collaboration with African citizens as well, because this is an area we are collaborating. We're not collaborating to do well, but we're collaborating in terms of being out of school. So there is a shortfall of, honestly and critically, in the education system in Africa, particularly Nigeria, where we have tens of millions of children out of school. Well, school is out of them too. So, what do you make of this project? What do you make of this report, first of all?
The report, somehow, you're correct. In terms of, because African countries, when it comes to education, they're not meeting standard. That's a UNICEF, United Nations Education Fund standard that most of African countries are yet to meet up with. So certainly the budget for education, even today, let me say Nigeria, for example, the education budget falls below that of other parasitas budget in our son. So if we are really actually facing education in the way it's supposed to be, as if we see education as paramount when it comes to development, which is the basic key driving policies in terms of development, education should be number one, because it drives every other aspect of development for every both developed and developing countries. So if we are not meeting up based on this number of funds injected into education, definitely cannot get it right. Because without the requisite fund, you can see ASU complain about going on strike and the rest. So it's all part of shortfall that the money has placed in on education. So that's why. So the same thing is applicable to most African countries, except few. Let me say Egypt, I think Tunisia, followed by their standard education is
Rwanda.
Yes, Rwanda too. Yes. So you understand. So most of this, I think Central Africa and West Africa fall short below of this standard. So we need to work up and make sure that there's enough fund when it comes to financing education.
Indeed. Aside from the issue of financing, which is very important because it comes from the government and the willpower to make a political decision to do that, but there are other critical areas of the education system, particularly in Nigeria. And I followed the research between 2021 also that was done. It's called Follow the Money Project by Connected Development, a non-governmental organization in Nigeria. And what they did was to follow different projects that has been approved, especially in the education sector when it comes to building of schools, buying of materials for schools and all of that. And we found that the majority of those money allocated were not used for the intended project. So we had to reach out to government agencies, different stakeholders that are affected by that. So at the end of the day, what do you think the government should do? Because the little that is being invested in the education sector is still being stolen or looted or taken away along the chain. So at the end of the day, you have dilapidated buildings, you have school infrastructures that look like it's the prison cell for the third world country. Or you're looking at the quality of education that is being given to students in those schools. So how do you think these critical areas can as well be exactly aside from the funding?
You know, the problem is, I think, what we call the oversight function of the Committee on Education from National Assembly. There's a Committee on Education that is supposed to monitor all projects being funded by government funding from the budget that's embarked for education. Though if you go, you see some other most other institutions these days. Anyway, once you enter, you see third fund project, so year, third fund project, so year. These are tertiary
education trust
fund that is being injected. But then, because these are the areas you see loopholes. And when it comes to project, you see loopholes in terms of money, like money talk moving along the front apart from the main directed chain. So that's the problem. The problem is now that oversight function, making sure that this money are trailed to every sector of education, that money meant for such things are delivered and project delivered. Not just as alone too. There are lecturers. Normally, many of them go overseas for their listening and for their training. Some of them went overseas to go and train and lecture there too and come and make money. Because most of them, the idea of going overseas to lecture is to make extra income. But then, when it comes to delivering the real purpose of education to the system that we are part of, as Nigerian system, many of them are lacking.
Many of them
are lacking. And understand, that's it. Lecturer will tell that, you can't pass my course, except you do this,
except you do this, you buy
my handout. You understand? So it's all part of the system. Understand? I just paid, was it yesterday? I sent my daughter 80,000 for medical book. Understand? Because their books are costly. And I asked her, say no, that there's workbook attached to it. The lecturer say they must buy it. So I have to send money. You understand? So these are things we're talking about, not issue of sending money to them. The lecturer is still delivering. The lecturer is to deliver, not going to make money. Because all of us part of the same system. It has been the same system over years. We cry about, and after crying, same thing continues. If lecturers are there, 10 years ago, still asking for, I want to buy a car. It's your money, I don't know, for my handout. And they buy the car because for the money they make. So it's a year or something. Lecturer that teaches on the 300 level this year, we see the same next session, the same thing. You understand? So it's a chain reaction. When the system is going down, people feel that it's a normal thing. But then you are killing the economy, killing the developmental process of a country that is supposed to grow normal. So that's what we are facing. So the idea now is that government must put their mouth where the money is. When we put money for education, follow it up that this money are well channeled, and you see the result. You understand? So it's a long-term project. Education is not something you put in now and get the result. It's something, it's a long-term project. Go into research and a lot of other things, but money are not going to research because most of the institutions are underfunded.
Speaking on the research, when it comes to the quality of education we're getting, and I'm not talking in abstract, let's take examples of countries that have done so well for themselves. We talked about Switzerland, a European country that has grown rapidly when it comes to agricultural innovation. They're leading the world now when it comes to food exports. And the United States as well. But when we look at even developing or developed, I don't know which category we want to put China now, because they say they are still developing, even though they are not even though they developed economy. But we saw the part that a functional education system had on their growth trajectory, and they made sure that funding was available for an education system that prioritizes their own developmental agenda. So when we look at the issues about robotics, when we look at the issue about mining and processing, China is one of the countries today that mine, process, and can sell rare earth metals at scale. No country comes close to it. When it comes to electric vehicle, when it comes to high-speed rail, when it comes to robotics, I was watching a video yesterday of robots dancing. I saw that too. They're putting money in industries that they want to succeed. Where is Africa putting our own money in terms of the education system?
Very important.
What are critical areas? Because we can say the education is it's not just something you're just okay, we put 10 billion in education. What are the areas do you think? What are the areas are they putting the money? And what are those critical areas do you think we should prioritize for our own developmental journey? Because we have our own growth trajectory that we want to focus. What should we put the money in? And what are we putting in now?
I think not just education. Education is the bedrock of all these other things. But then Africa should first focus on agriculture. So you should be able to at least feeding yourself is the basic thing first. Then all other things will follow up.
Exactly.
If we're able to feed ourselves, which is the thing, and then export. Agriculture is it's a big time business. If you can do that, Israel and the rest are living by it. So there's nothing wrong if we can go through that channel first. But notwithstanding, education must be part and parcel of whatever we are going to inject in terms of development. But the agriculture, we should be able to put money in agriculture and make sure that these monies are funded. A lot of agriculture institutes should be funded properly. And then aside, we have a lot of agric schools in Nigeria. We have Umudike, I think it's Nigerian College of Education, College of Agriculture. And a lot of them, other places, we have one in agriculture there too. So this area we should put money, and then we have what we call a development plan when it comes to this things. And then you have what you call like in terms of industries, chain industries that are changed to success when it comes to agriculture. That this industry will become, most of the substances within these schools will be the one that's feeding these industries. And that's how it's the tools. So you don't need to bring in a lot of tools, heavy tools from China and the rest. But then the basic ones we must have it. And it's for processing our basic agricultural products. We should have them in place. Understand? So that's what my own trajectory when it comes to my own idea of what should be done for African countries first. We should also go on agriculture, then education. We're going all along the same chain. Agri and education should be focused on, so that we don't regret that at a time we cannot feed ourselves. Because if we cannot feed ourselves, sadly, no other development will come in.
Exactly.
That's the basic thing. So I still believe that we should focus on that area of agriculture and make sure we are self-sustainers when it comes to that first. Then education along the chain, because our education must be part and parcel of whatever we are doing. So that's my only idea when it comes to that.
I like the fact that I really like the fact that he talked about agriculture. Very important, because, like I said in the morning when we were taking the news, I said it's only someone that has had enough food that would have the strength to want to work and think well. Just like you now, if you do not eat well, you won't think well this morning. So I like the fact that you are actually talking about agriculture. The question I want to ask is about education right now. When it comes to monitoring of the funds being put into education, how can government help to monitor it steadily that would make this education sector, make sure that these funds are getting to them? Because at the end of the day, sometimes you hear that, okay, this was a social amount that was mentioned, but we didn't get to see any money, and they would just keep denying, and this is resulting to more problems. So how do the government come in? Should there involve more working force that would monitor these funds so that it can go according to plan, or what do you think the government can do about it?
Everything is in place. There's a will to do the proper thing. There are, as I said, for every sector of economy, the way it's designed. Today we are in a democracy, you understand? In the House there, National Assembly, we have committee for every aspect. Money that monitoring, money that is assigned to every project. What we call the oversight function of different committees. The Committee on Education, the oversight function, the money that are budgeted for education, for social projects under education. There are people who go to the but the non-parent thing that is happening. If you hear that third fund or committee on education, they are visiting the school, and that the VC will go and prepare packages.
Okay.
Packages for the committee that is coming. You put for them. And after they will sit in a very close indoor and then discuss. After discussion, they give them the brown envelope. And it's okay. So even there are some courses that are yet to be accredited.
Exactly.
To them and understand. So it's all part of the decay we have in the system. So every day, you see, the will is there, you understand, but the proper idea of delivering is what we are lacking. Now they monitor it, but then if a committee has coming for a school and they have the package down ready for them, and when they come, they just take them around the places and they sign the requisite something and go, and that ends there, you understand. Then let's take the budget fund for that sector and think of things like that. So the problem is not just, I don't know how to put it, whether it's going to say the government, because not the government has set everything in place, but the people, that's the mindset of our people, to make sure things work, not there. And I understand.
Indeed. And I want to add, if I may, that if there's, because you mentioned that these people have their regulatory oversight responsibilities for every industry or every sector that the government is actually putting their money into. And if they're not performing the responsibilities with which they are being paid for, or being elected to do by Nigerians, I think ordinary citizens, common man, should also begin to see how we can take up responsibilities. And I think that's the aspect where civil societies, NGOs can also come on board, because we have a responsibility. It's a it's a national cake that is being shared or that is being distributed by these power brokers amongst themselves. And I think we have a responsibility as informed citizens that can organize and come together and question and research, because I've seen quite a number of young people come out nowadays to look at the budget, what's being allocated, what funding is being spent, and within our own local communities. And that's where community neighborhood and belonging to a society is really important, because if we have a particular community that they can have come together in one voice and demand from the regulatory authorities or from the executive arm of government, or even from the local government or local council officials, to demand that this social project has been talked about, we hear that the government has put the money to it, but we've not done anything. The willpower of the people can actually make the government sit up and do the needful when it comes to that. So I think they can also come on board as citizens' engagement in that aspect.
Citizens' engagement.
Yes.
So that's the same thing that's happening. Even this morning as we are speaking, there are people who are demanding.
Exactly.
People are demanding now citizens' engagement, and NGOs and the rest of other bodies demanding that there should be e-transmission of voters. Let us now hope that the leadership of the National Assembly will listen to it. And that's the basic thing now. People will always protest that this is the demand of the citizens. And please, if 80% of citizens who say you are elected to be there are saying this is what we want, you should be able to obey, understand, and follow up. Make sure that actually you are only a servant by nature. That's the idea of democracy. We put you there as a servant to work for us. So if you now decide to say, this is where we want things to go, you should be able to listen and say this want to go. So if the idea of this is that, so people, if holding government accountable, it's always there, it has been there. But the point that what we want to know about being responsive government must listen to the voice of the people. If this is what they want, and if this is what they want, then nobody's saying that actually government, but the people too might be wrong in some cases.
Okay.
But then that's the idea where government sits down and say, okay, let us deliberate on this issue. Which one favors the development of that particular nation? And then understand. So everybody cannot be on the other side.
Exactly. What if in a situation where the people are actually right in their demands and it's not been looked into by the government? What do you think is the next solution to that?
We cannot come for anarchy. We continue to.
I just wanted to hear that.
It's the system. Okay. Indeed. But another area I want us to touch on when it comes to education sector, particularly for Nigeria and Africa inclusive, is the issue of insecurity and how it affects the education system. Before 2015 general elections, when President Jonathan was still the president of this country, we had one of the most traumatic experiences for Nigerians at that time. That was the Chibok school girls. Over 300 of them were kidnapped, and that became a first for Nigerians. But over the years, we've seen repeated occurrence of children being kidnapped from their schools, not only from schools in rural areas, schools that are quite close to urban cities. And we've seen that the issue of insecurity is multifaceted and also multi-layered. When we're talking about different parts of this country, we're talking about perhaps terrorism in the northeast, we're talking about banditry in the north, south, we're talking about issue of kidnapping in southwest, we're talking about issue of vandalism and banditry or agitation in the south or southeastern part of the country. So with this multi-layered security issue that Nigeria is facing, how does this education system come into play when Nigeria is thinking about solving its critical issues? Because I have seen that intervention when it comes to security issue has been reactive rather than proactive. When things happen, you hear statements from the government. We've charged our security agencies to go and look for them, and they'll be brought to book. Nobody's been arrested. Nobody is being prosecuted. Nobody's paying for the crimes that they're committing. And at the end of the day, you see Nigerian government negotiating with terrorists or their sympathizers or the people that are being even arrested are being repatriated back into the communities to come commit the same crime. So how do we ensure that there's safety for ordinary children, for common people in their schools? You see NYSC corps members actually asking for redeployment or refusing to be deployed to a insecure part of the country. And the spirit of the National Youth Service Corps is for Nigerians to get cohesiveness or to integrate with other parts of the country, to learn about the culture, learn about the language. Multiple hundreds of languages we have in Nigeria. Hundreds of cultures are we cannot engage with ourselves and see how we can, even the local community that you are schooling is still being threatened by the actions of non-state actors. So how do we ensure that security is also a critical part of intervention when we come to having or achieving a quality education system in Nigeria?
It all boils down to executive arm. Well, the executive arm more or less are the key areas when it comes to the 3 tiers of government. Yes, but then even at that, I think there was a recent kidnapping of I think a school children somewhere in the Kwara and the rest. I think the governor had to say that. In short, I think the president, the executive arm, tasked the chief of army staff to make sure that I think they released about 1 battalion of soldiers to Kwara, and then in Niger State. With that enough when it comes to in terms of insecurity.
But that's still reactive.
Exactly. We can't continue being being reactive rather than on the preventive side. The better is at now, I think what the government should do is, or the security agencies, to make sure that, especially schools that run residential and day outfit. Yes, should make sure that, I think for those who should or scrap entirely the issue of residency now, you understand? Because they cannot be catered for when it comes to security 100%. So because of the number of security agents we have to cater for this about 250 million Nigerians, they're not enough to do that. And moreover, the army is overstretched. Overstretched in terms of that. Army is overstretched. The police, they are not enough. I think the president just ordered, I think about 40,000 policemen to be recruited, and then army too. You understand? But then it still falls back to the low standard. We are still running about one citizen to 100 policemen per 1,000. So you understand, which is below UN standard. So we understand. So we are still lacking when it comes to manpower. So doing that now, it depends on I think the National Assembly should be able to sit up and make sure that those who are in charge of power, in charge of security, finds a way to cover up these leakages when it comes to education aspect of securing our schools and the students there. Because you cannot be talking about education where there's lapses in security. You understand? You can't be sending a child to a school that when the child goes to school, your mind is up there. That this child, is it safe? You understand? So that's the basic thing we have to do. Basic thing we have to do is to making sure that our security architecture is rejigged, you understand, in such that they cater for our present needs, present situation. But our situation now is peculiar. That's the truth about it. We have been fighting for insurgency since 2009. Many years ago. We are still fighting the same thing. It's even getting to a very unbearable situation now. That we cannot bring foreign forces to come and help us do it. It's we that find a way to make sure that we protect and secure the country.
In terms of protection and securing the country, the president mentioned recently that he has vowed to move ahead with state policing in the country. Yes. And different aspects or different interesting take from different stakeholders in the country. Those have said it might actually lead to secession, that different quarters, parts of the country that are agitating for their own independence, and there are those that said it would give state governors more power to be more ruthless to their citizens, to do things against the constitution because they have the army or the military to, or the soldiers or not, or the state guard to deploy that are actually armed. And there are those with the opinion that say that this is actually necessary. Even it's not only state policing, we need community policing that can actually ensure that there is a cohesive and coherent structure when it comes to safeguarding the lives and property of Nigerians, especially children in school. So what do you think of looking at the perspective of different people? Because everybody have their own interest when it comes to the national security of the country and the oneness of Nigeria. So do you think that the unity of this country will be threatened if we have state policing?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. You know, presently we have more or less what I would call a partial state policing, but though because it depends on what you call it. I think in the southwest we have Amoteco.
But those are not armed.
They're not armed. No, definitely they are armed, but with light arm. They're not armed, but not sophisticated arm, so as to face the insurgency and the rest. They're armed, but from there. But the problem is that, the most of this starts from when you want to legislate a law. It comes from the same thing that we're talking about, coming from the house. There must be a law that gives them that power. Understand? So it's now like there's friction between the quasi-state police, not state police, the one that the regional forces and they have to create like Amoteco and the rest, and then the Hisban and the Kano and the rest, understand? There are still no full legislation in terms of operation. Because they are doing it with fear, because at the end of the day, you see, it's kind of the person who's in charge can't take order from the commissioner of police for that state. The commissioner of police now still seems to override. Understand? We tell you what to do. So, but if you now go back to the law, to rejig our law, making sure that there are state policing, then the fallout of state policing, it comes to what you call about the vigilante, and when it comes to what do you call it, in terms of people going underground to really do the work, which is what we call
intelligence officers.
The intelligence officers going underground to do the work. They are all fallout of state police. You understand? But then, the problem now, like many other ideas, are suggesting that the governors will adjust the process because of our terrain, the kind of political environment we are. If not, the other states that run state police, so the police understand. You run state police based on the allocation of funds available to you. Like in other states, even in the US, they call that a police officer in New York is from any police officer in New Jersey, same thing in California. There's no uniform in terms of operation. You now pay your police officer based on available fund of the state available fund. You can pay higher than this person, you can pay higher than this person. But all matters that it's only you now have only one federal police. You understand? Which was like what we are operating before. Which called when it is the CIT and the rest. You have one federal police, but all the other police function under the state. You understand? And if you now legislate the legislative aspect of it, that's when it comes to lawmaking. Or you want to go and do what we call you rejig the constitution back. If we have to rejig it, I remember joint administration did a constitutional conference, which is still lying in the cooler today. If you can bring another constitutional conference, a lot, because I've gone through it. That's actually what we should be able to do. But unfortunately, it didn't implement it before it leaves office. You understand? So if Nigeria should go that way of state policing and making sure that the governor has an invitation, because everything boils down to law. No governor should have an absolute power. Because you are a governor, then you can do some things with the law. If a president can go to jail in other countries, you understand? Or governors can go to jail in other countries, which means that they are not above the law. It all depends on the way we run our system. You understand? Making an executive office as if you are above any law. It shouldn't be that way. So in the other angle, the state police should function without any friction between the federal and the state.
And the state.
You understand? But you can work with power. You understand? But all comes to the table when it comes to federal gazetting of laws. You understand? It still takes to the center. But then they run it independently. Because then you see more effectiveness of the security we are talking about. So it cannot be guarding a school. Imagine you taking away about 170 people who went for service on the same major road. You understand? And nobody sees you. It sounds funny. To move even 50 people, to move 50 people is not easy because of 170 people without nobody not being traced. In this era of a drone, you cannot say this and where the part that you take people.
It's a funny one.
So it's funny. You understand? So it shows we are not moving with development. That's the truth about it. We're moving with development.
Lastly, before I let you go, because we're quickly running out of time, I want to touch on the model of education system that we run in Nigeria, because I'm very particular about this country. The context is on the African continent, but more particularly, let's talk about Nigeria. We have, you mentioned a population of 250 million, although they were yet to do the census that they've been postponing for a very long time. But when we look at that and we look at the government's coffers and how much it's been invested in the quality of education that we're receiving in this country, can we confidently say that the Nigerian government has the willpower or have that economic muscle to adequately invest in education in the next 5 years to achieve global standards in education system on this continent? Or do you believe, or would you suggest any other contrary intervention that can be done when it comes to our classrooms? We don't have enough for different community schools, or we see 300 children in a class.
Especially public schools.
So what other international standard procedure can we begin to adopt for ourselves, or what other creative way can we begin to adopt that if we cannot cater for everybody at a time? What can we do differently? Are there vocational schools people can go to? Are there technical schools that can be standardized up to the level that a degree holder is being respected and being offered opportunities when it comes to, because at the end of the day, employability or access to using what you've learned to earn something is what people want to be able to gain at the end of the day. So are we looking at vocational schooling? Are we looking at technical colleges? I mean, all of that are in place. We cannot deny that. But how can we assure that there's adequate funding going into those areas as well, so that we can be able to cushion the effect when we have a shortfall in the regular education
That's why I
system?
talked about monitoring too.
So as you see from your analysis, so far, I think from what you have said so far, I think vocational school is the way to go. Because other countries, let me give an example, Ghana. Ghana has been running it for the past 10 years, and it's paying for that. Because you remember, there was a time we were talking about that era of Ghana must go. You look at the tailors, the mobile tailors, like Ghanaians, the cobblers, like Ghanaians. If you have any site where they are building any particular structure, you see more than half of the people there are Ghanaians. The teachers, I can say for Lagos, the science teachers we have in Lagos, there we are Ghanaians, then partly supported by Indians at that time. Yes, so Ghana have made sure that they integrate the vocational aspect of the technical school into their mainstream education. So that you see that what we are facing in Nigeria is more or less in education is what we call a policy somersault, where today this government say 633 system. In the next 5 years, another government is changing the whole aspect.
System entirely.
It's not, that's not how you run a particular system that grows. And government comes with their own idea. Every government comes with their ideas. The trajectory should be that this Nigeria in the next 5 years, we want to run a vocational education that produces the best hand. Today, I told you some time ago when I was arriving that most of the countries you see that are moving with pace with the modern society, most of them don't focus on more or less 100% education. This is kind of what I understand. Today in China, people are doing the magic you see in China, robotics are just school children. They couple these things, you understand? Most of them don't but you go to basic education, which is the basic, the elementary aspect of education, that now discover your own talent and make sure that you go along with that talent. You see, the point then in that challenge, you now see that children who are brought up under such policy are more integrated into the society, what society wants of them. But you understand, if you want to technical education, then you put them in the area where they do technical education, and grow by it. Not question of doing education, but most of education is more or less abstract. That you understand. Most of things, if you don't go to the field, you cannot see them. If you remain in the four walls of this classroom for 10 years, most of the things will build and die with you. But when you go to the field, it makes you to understand that most of the things we are seeing today, like that is one of my lecturers would ask our lecturer, the this, the Y, the X we are doing every day. Where are you going to see it? Where are you going to see it?
So we always say that we're looking for X, we never say X.
So those are the things you understand. So I think vocational education aspect must be integrated into our education system so that if people can grow. If you want to be an electrician, go an electrician, go what I see them more of them as Abuja here. In the morning, people are going a Tyler. Goes out in the morning, dress well, go and meet. If you that with any money, you understand that you don't become a business society. Go that place.
Indeed.
That's the idea.
Indeed. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Very important.
Commentator and analyst at IGA Television. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for calling.
It's been an interesting conversation on Idea Money Digest. We'll go on a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be looking at what's trending. Stay with us.
Augmented reality, AR, and virtual reality, VR. AR and VR are transforming the way we experience the world.